Zara Voss pressed her trembling fingers against the communications console. As another explosion rocked the settlement, the lights flickered in the command center of New Haven Colony, casting dancing shadows across her worried face. Outside the reinforced windows, orange flames painted the night sky where the grain silos had stood just hours before. Mayday! Mayday! This is New Haven Colony requesting immediate assistance. She broadcast for the 15th time, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding her. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. Civilian evacuation in progress. The response was the same crackling static that had answered her previous calls. They were alone out here on the edge of human space, 3 days from the nearest. Patrol wrote, the raiders had chosen their target well. Zara, we need to move, shouted Ben Torres, the colony's administrator, as he burst through the door. His usually pristine uniform was torn and stained with ash. They've breached the eastern perimeter. The shuttles are loading the last civilians now. She nodded but kept her position at the console. As the settlement's communications specialist, she was their lifeline to the outside universe. Someone had to keep trying to get word out about what was happening here. The attackers weren't just random pirates. Their ships bore markings she'd never seen before, and their coordinated assault spoke of military precision. Just give me 2 more minutes, she pleaded, adjusting the frequency once more. If I can reach the relay station at Proxima, a new voice crackled through the speakers, strong and confident with a slight accent she couldn't place. New Haven Colony, this is Starfree responding to your distress call. We're 3 minutes out. Hold tight. Zara's heart leaped with relief, but also something else she couldn't quite name. There was something in that voice warm, reassuring, like a hand reaching out in the darkness. Starfree, thank the stars you're here. We have approximately 200 civilians still evacuating. The attackers have grounded assault ships in sectors 7 and 12. They're using some kind of energy weapon I've never seen before. Copy. That, New Haven. I've got visual on the hostiles. Looks like Dominion raiders. Stay on this channel and keep your head down. This is about to get interesting. Through the window, Zara watched streaks of light pierce the smoke-filled sky as the rescue ship engaged the alien vessels. The newcomer's fighter was sleek and fast, dancing between the larger raider ships with an elegance that made her breath catch. Whoever was piloting that craft was either incredibly skilled or completely insane. Dominion, she whispered into her headset. She'd heard rumors of an expanding alien empire somewhere beyond the frontier, but the government had assured everyone those were just stories. Yeah, they're not supposed to be this far into human space. The pilot's voice came back, strained now as he pulled through a tight maneuver. Something's changed. This isn't a random raid, this is a probe. They're testing our defenses. Another explosion, closer this time, sent Zara sprawling across the floor. Emergency lighting bathed everything in red as the main power failed. Ben was shouting something about hull breaches, but all she could focus on was the voice in her earpiece. New Haven, talk to me. Are you okay? The concern in his tone sent warmth spreading through her chest despite the cold fear gripping her heart. I'm here, Starfree, but I think they're coming for the command center. Not if I have anything to say about it. What's your name, Zara? Zara Voss. Beautiful name. I'm Marcus Reed, and I promise you, Zara, I'm going to get you out of there. She found herself smiling even as weapon fire echoed through the corridors outside. There was something about the way he said her name that made her feel safer than she had any right to feel. The shuttles are away. Ben called out. We're the last ones. Marcus, the evacuation is complete. Just us left in the command center. Perfect timing. I've cleared you a path to the landing pad. You'll see my ship. She's the pretty one shooting back at the ugly ones. Despite everything. Zara laughed. Roger that. Moving to the landing pad now. She grabbed the portable data core containing all the colony's records and followed Ben through corridors filled with smoke and debris. Behind them, she could hear the distinctive whine of Dominion weapons getting closer. They burst onto the landing pad just as a sleek fighter touched down, its hull scarred but intact. The cockpit slid open, and Zara got her first look at Marcus Reed. He was younger than she'd expected, with dark hair and intense blue eyes that seemed to take in Everything at once, when those eyes met hers. She felt something spark between them, a connection that transcended the chaos around them. "Come on," he shouted over the noise of his engines. "We've got about 30 seconds before they realize where we went." Zara and Ben scrambled into the fighter's rear compartment. Just as the first Dominion soldiers rounded the corner, Marcus didn't wait. He lifted off immediately, the ship rising into the burning night sky with fluid grace. As New Haven Colony fell away below them, Zara watched her home disappear into smoke and flame. Everything she'd known, everything she'd built, was gone. But as she looked at the back of Marcus's head, at the confident way he handled the controls, she felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. The fighter shuddered as they broke through the atmosphere, and Marcus's hands moved over the controls with practiced ease. "So," he said once they'd cleared the immediate danger, "anyone want to tell me why the Dominion just attacked a peaceful farming colony?" Zara clutched the data core tighter. She'd managed to download everything before the attack: colony records, communication logs, even the strange energy readings they'd been detecting for weeks before the raid. Whatever was on these files, someone had been willing to kill 100 innocent people to get it. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "We were just farmers. We grew food. We minded our own business. Why would anyone want to hurt us?" Marcus glanced back at her, and she saw something in his expression that made her pulse quicken. Not just sympathy, but a burning anger that matched her own growing fury. "Because they think they can," he said quietly. "Because they think we're weak, scattered, easy targets." His jaw tightened. "They're about to learn how wrong they are." As they flew toward an uncertain future, Zara realized that her life had just changed forever, not just because her home was gone, but because of the man sitting in front of her, the mysterious pilot, who'd risked everything to save people he'd never met. She had no idea that Marcus Reed was about to change not just her world, but the entire galaxy. The silence in Marcus's fighters stretched between them like a bridge neither quite knew how to cross. Zara found herself studying the back of his neck, the way his dark hair curled slightly against his collar, the confident set of his shoulders as he piloted them through the star-filled void. Ben had fallen asleep in the cramped rear compartment, exhausted by the trauma of losing everything. But sleep was the furthest thing from Zara's mind. "So," she said softly, not wanting to wake Ben, "Starfree isn't exactly a standard rescue ship." Designation. Marcus's laugh was warm in the cockpit's intimate space. "That's because I'm not exactly standard rescue personnel." He glanced back at her, those blue eyes twinkling with mischief. "I'm what you might call independently motivated. A smuggler," she guessed, though somehow that didn't fit the man who'd risked his life to save strangers. "Something like that." His expression grew more serious. "Actually, I'm part of a group that's been tracking Dominion movements for months. We've been trying to warn the frontier colonies, but nobody wanted to listen. Said we were paranoid, that the government had everything under control." Zara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's recycled air. "You mean this wasn't random? They've been planning this." New Haven was just the beginning. Marcus's hands tightened on the controls. "The Dominion doesn't do anything small. When they move with purpose. And from what I saw back there, they're testing human response times, defensive capabilities. They're preparing for something bigger." The words fell from her lips like stones into still water, sending ripples of fear through her chest. "Much bigger." He was quiet for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. "Zara, that data core you're carrying, what's on it?" She looked down at the small device clutched in her hands. "Colony records, communications logs, sensor data from the past few months." "Why?" "Because 3 weeks ago, another frontier colony reported strange energy readings before they went dark. Same pattern as what you described. If that data shows what I think it does." "What do you think it does?" Marcus turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. "I think it shows that the Dominion has been seeding our space with something. Beacons, maybe, or worse, weapons." The ship's proximity alarm suddenly chimed, breaking the moment. Marcus spun back to his controls, fingers flying over the display. "We've got company. 3 ships. Closing fast." Zara peered at the scanner display, her heart sinking as she recognized the angular silhouettes. Dominion, looks like they really wanted that data core. Marcus's voice was calm, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. Hold on, this is going to get rough. The first energy blast lit up the darkness outside their viewports, missing them by mere meters. Marcus threw the ship into a spiraling dive, using a nearby asteroid field for cover. Zara was pressed back into her seat by the G-forces, but she couldn't take her eyes off the pilot. He moved like he was dancing, every maneuver flowing seamlessly into the next. The way he anticipated the enemy's moves, the way he used the asteroids not just as shields but as weapons, sending chunks of rock spinning into their pursuers' paths. It was artistry. Where did you learn to fly like that? She breathed, awed. Despite their desperate situation, long story, he said through gritted teeth as another blast scored their shields. Remind me to tell you over dinner sometime. The casual promise sent warmth flooding through her chest. Dinner. As if they were going to survive this. As if there would be a future where they could sit across from each other at a table and share stories like normal people. I'd like that, she whispered, surprising herself with her boldness. Marcus glanced back at her, and for a moment their eyes met. Something passed between them in that look: understanding, possibility, the beginning of something that could grow into more given time and chance. Then the ship shuddered under a direct hit, and alarms began wailing throughout the cockpit. Shield generators are down, Marcus reported, his voice tight with concentration. We need to find somewhere to land, fast. There. Zara pointed to a small planetoid on the edge of the asteroid field. It's showing an atmosphere, minimal but breathable. Good eye. Marcus aimed their damaged ship toward the rocky world. Though I should probably mention that's not exactly uninhabited space. Down there. What do you mean? I mean that planetoid is home to the rebel base where I'm supposed to be reporting back, with information about Dominion movements. He managed a wry smile even as he fought to keep their failing ship stable. Hope you don't mind meeting some friends of mine. The landing was more controlled crash than graceful touchdown, but Marcus kept them alive through skill and sheer determination. As the engines finally went silent and the dust settled around them, Zara realized she was shaking not from fear, but from adrenaline and something else entirely. You okay? Marcus asked, reaching back to check on her. His hand brushed hers as he helped her with her safety harness, and the contact sent electricity shooting up her arm. I'm alive, she said breathlessly. Thanks to you. We're not safe yet. But he didn't move his hand away from hers. Zara, I need you to know what happens next. It's going to be dangerous. The people I work with, they're good people, but they're at war. If you want, I can arrange transport to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere the Dominion can't reach. No. The word came out more forcefully than she'd intended. My home is gone. Everyone I cared about is scattered across the galaxy, or she couldn't finish that thought. I want to help. I want to make them pay for what they did. Marcus studied her face, and she saw something shift in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition of a kindred spirit. The data core, he said quietly. Will you share it with us? It could be the key to stopping them before they hit more colonies. Zara looked down at the device that held all that remained of her old life. Then she looked back up at Marcus, this mysterious, brave, infuriating man who dropped into her world like a falling star and changed everything. On one condition, she said, name it. You don't send me somewhere safe, wherever you're going. Whatever you're planning, I want to be part of it. She met his gaze steadily. I want to fight back. Marcus smiled then, a real smile that transformed his entire face. I was hoping you'd say that. Outside the ship, voices were calling in languages Zara didn't recognize. The rebel base was responding to their rival. In a few minutes they'd have to face whatever came next. But for now, in the quiet intimacy of the damaged cockpit, it was just the two of them. And despite everything they'd lost, despite the danger ahead, Zara felt something she hadn't expected to feel again. She felt like she was exactly where she belonged. The rebel base was nothing like Zara had imagined, carved into the heart of the planetoid. It hummed with activity and purpose. Corridors lined with salvage technology branched off in all directions, while beings from a dozen different species worked side by side. The air thrummed with energy and determination and something else she couldn't quite identify. Until she saw the way people looked at Marcus, respect, trust, and from more than a few of the women, something that made Zara's chest tighten with an emotion she didn't want to name. Marcus. A voice called out as they made their way through the main corridor. Zara turned to see a striking woman approaching them, her long auburn hair tied back in a practical braid, her green eyes sharp with intelligence. She wore the same kind of flight suit as Marcus, but hers bore the insignia of a senior officer. "Nova," Marcus said, and Zara caught the warmth in his voice. "Good to see you made it back in one piece." Nova Chen stopped in front of them, her gaze moving from Marcus to Zara with obvious curiosity. "I could say the same about you, though your ship looks like it went through a recycling plant." Her eyes settled on Zara. "And you brought a friend." "This is Zara Voss," Marcus said, his hand resting lightly on Zara's back in a gesture that sent warmth spreading through her. "She's the communications specialist from New Haven Colony. The one I told you about." "Ah." Nova's expression shifted, becoming gentler. "I'm sorry about your colony. We heard about the attack on the emergency channels." "Thank you," Zara managed, still processing the easy familiarity between Marcus and this beautiful, competent woman. "Marcus saved my life. Actually, he saved all of us. That's our Marcus," Nova said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, always playing the hero. She looked back at him. "The Council wants to debrief you immediately. The Dominion's been active in 3 more sectors since you left." Marcus nodded grimly. "It's worse than we thought. They're not just raiding, they're mapping. And Zara has data that might show us what they're really after." Nova's eyebrows rose with interest, and she looked at Zara with new respect. "Well then, looks like you're going to be very popular around here." She gestured toward a side corridor. "Come on, let's get you both to the briefing room." As they walked, Nova fell into step beside Marcus, their conversation peppered with inside references and shared experiences that made Zara feel like an outsider looking in. She tried to focus on the base around her, the impressive engineering, the obvious dedication of the people working here, but she couldn't shake the growing realization that Marcus had a whole life here she knew nothing about. "How long have you two known each other?" she asked during a lull in their conversation. 3 years, Nova replied before Marcus could answer. "We met when I was still running intelligence for the Outer Rim Defense Force." Marcus was. "What? Were you then a freelance pilot with questionable allegiances?" "Hey, my allegiances have always been crystal clear," Marcus protested with a grin. "I'm against tyranny in all its forms, and for getting into trouble whenever possible," Nova added dryly. The easy banter between them made Zara's stomach twist. These two had history, shared dangers, inside jokes. What did she have? One dramatic rescue and a few hours of conversation. In a cramped cockpit, the briefing room was filled with holographic displays showing star charts and fleet movements. A dozen people in military gear looked up as they entered, but one figure commanded immediate attention. A tall man with prematurely gray hair and calculating eyes stepped forward. "Marcus, good timing. We need to know everything about the New Haven attack." His gaze shifted to Zara. "And you must be our survivor with the data core." "This is General Hayes," Nova explained quietly. "He runs our intelligence operations." Zara found herself the center of attention as she connected her data core to the base's systems. The room fell silent as streams of information flowed across the display's sensor readings. Communication intercepts, energy signatures that painted a picture of careful, methodical preparation. "My God," someone whispered. "They've been seeding beacons throughout this entire sector." "Not just beacons," Nova said, her face pale as she studied the data. "These energy signatures, they're quantum resonance markers. The Dominion is preparing to fold space." "Fold space?" Zara asked, not understanding the sudden tension that filled the room. "Instant travel across vast distances," Marcus explained grimly. "If they can establish a network of these markers, they can move their entire fleet anywhere in human space without warning." General Hayes was already moving, issuing orders to subordinates who scattered to their stations. "We need to contact all cells immediately. This changes everything." "How long do we have?" Nova asked. "Based on these readings, maybe 2 weeks. Before their network is complete," Hayes replied. "After that," he didn't need to finish. Everyone in the room understood the implications. As the meeting broke up into smaller planning groups, Nova approached Zara. "You've given us something invaluable here. The Resistance owes you a debt." "I don't want anyone's debt," Zara said quietly. "I want to help stop them." Nova studied her for a long moment. "You know, we could use someone with your communications expertise. Our current network is functional, but it could be better, faster, more secure." "I'd like that," Zara said, meaning it. She wanted to be useful, to contribute something meaningful to the fight. "Good. I'll show you to quarters and get you set up with our tech team." Nova paused. "But first, can I ask you something?" Zara nodded. Double quotes Marcus. Nova's voice was carefully neutral. "How do you feel about him?" The direct question caught Zara off guard. What do you mean?" "I mean he's a good man, but he's also a dangerous one. He takes risks others wouldn't dream of. People who care about him tend to worry a lot." "Are you warning me off?" Zara asked, surprised by the defensive edge in her own voice. "No," Nova said after a moment. "I'm asking if you're strong enough to handle caring about someone like that. Because I've seen what happens to people who aren't." Before Zara could respond, Marcus appeared at her elbow. "Nova, stop interrogating our guest." "Zara, want to get some food?" "The base's synthesizers aren't much, but they're better than emergency rations, actually." Nova interjected smoothly. "I was just about to show Zara around the technical sections. Get her familiar with our systems." "That can wait until tomorrow," Marcus said, his tone light but firm. "She's been through enough for one day." Zara found herself caught between them, feeling the undercurrents of a conversation that had nothing to do with tours or food. "It's okay," she said quietly. "I'd like to see the communications set up, learn how I can help." Something flickered in Marcus's eyes, disappointment, maybe, or hurt. "Of course. I'll catch up with you later." As he walked away, Nova placed a gentle hand on Zara's arm. "He's not easy to understand sometimes. Marcus carries a lot of guilt about the people he hasn't been able to save." "Is that what this is about?" Zara asked. "You think I'm just another rescue mission to him?" "I think," Nova said carefully, "that Marcus doesn't know the difference between duty and feeling anymore. And I think someone's going to get hurt if he doesn't figure it out soon." As they walked toward the technical sections, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that Nova's warning came from personal experience. The question was, what had happened between Nova and Marcus, and why did the answer matter so much to her? That night, lying in her small but comfortable quarters, Zara stared at the ceiling and tried to sort through her tangled emotions. In less than 24 hours, her entire world had been turned upside down. She'd lost her home, her security, her sense of safety. But she'd also found something she hadn't expected: purpose, and maybe, despite Nova's warnings and her own doubts, the beginning of something that could become love. The question was, did Marcus feel the same way, or was she just another person he'd saved, another responsibility he'd taken on until he could find somewhere safe to leave her? Outside her door, footsteps paused for a long moment before continuing down the corridor. Zara closed her eyes and wondered if she was brave enough to find out the answer. 3 months later, Zara stood on the bridge of the Valiant Dawn, watching through the viewports as the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled prepared for battle. Ships stretched to the horizon in every direction, sleek fighters, massive cruisers, converted cargo haulers bristling with improvised weapons. The rebellion had grown beyond anyone's wildest expectations, fueled by rage over the Dominion's continued attacks and hope sparked by the intelligence Zara had provided. Final fleet count, Captain Stone called out Admiral Hayes from his command station. Captain J. Stone, the fleet commander who'd been brought in to lead this impossible mission, studied his tactical displays with the calm focus that had made him a legend. Despite his youth, he couldn't be much older than Marcus. He carried himself with an authority that made seasoned veterans listen when he spoke. 237 ships, Admiral Jace reported, his voice carrying across the bridge. "Not as many as we'd hoped, but more than the Dominion expects us to have." Zara felt a presence beside her and turned to find Marcus approaching, his flight suit bearing the insignia of squadron leader. The past months had changed him, or perhaps had simply revealed who he'd always been beneath the lone wolf exterior. The easy charm was still there, but now it was backed by unwavering determination and a kind of quiet intensity that made her heart race. "Ready for this?" he asked quietly, his blue eyes searching her face, as ready as anyone can be for attacking. "An alien homeworld," she replied, managing a smile despite the butterflies in her stomach. "You? I've been ready for this fight since the day they destroyed your colony." His hand found hers, their fingers intertwining naturally. "Since the day I almost lost you before I even really found you." The simple words sent warmth flooding through her chest. After months of stolen moments between missions, of conversations that danced around feelings neither quite knew how to express, Marcus had finally started letting his guard down. It had taken time and more than a few arguments with Nova about his protective instincts, but slowly, carefully, they'd built something real between them. "Captain Stone to all squadron leaders," Jace's voice crackled over the comm system. "We're approaching the jump point. Remember, the element of surprise is our only advantage. Once we're through, we have maybe 30 minutes before their reinforcements arrive." "Acknowledged," Marcus responded along with a dozen other voices. He squeezed Zara's hand. "I have to go, I know." She caught his arm as he started to turn away. "Marcus, come back to me. Always," he said softly, and the promise in his voice made her believe it was possible. As the fleet prepared for the hyperspace jump, Zara made her way to the communication station where she'd be coordinating intelligence gathering and battlefield communications. Nova was already there, running final checks on their quantum encryption systems. "Nervous?" Nova asked without looking up from her displays. "Terrified," Zara admitted, "but also hopeful." "Is that crazy?" Nova's smile was genuine, and Zara realized that somewhere over the past months, they'd moved beyond the careful politeness that had marked their early interactions. "Not crazy at all. That's exactly how I felt before my first major operation with Marcus." "Actually, no." Nova's expression grew thoughtful. "Marcus and we were never what you might think. We tried, briefly, but we're too much alike. Both. Too stubborn, too independent. We work better as friends." Zara felt relief wash over her, followed immediately by embarrassment at her own transparency. "I wasn't." "Yes, you were. And it's okay." Nova's green eyes twinkled with amusement. "He's crazy about you, you know. The way he talks about you. When you're not around, I've never seen him like that with anyone." Before Zara could respond, the ship lurched as they entered hyperspace. Through the viewports, stars streaked past in ribbons of light as the fleet raced toward the heart of Dominion space. "All stations, prepare for reversion to normal space in 60 seconds, Captain Stone announced. Zara's hands flew over her console, activating the communication networks that would link every ship in the fleet. Beside her, Nova armed the quantum scramblers that would disrupt Dominion coordination once the battle began. 30 seconds. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of instruments and the whispered prayers of crew members. Zara thought about New Haven Colony, about the people who'd died there, about all the other worlds that had fallen to Dominion aggression. This was for them. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark. Reality reasserted itself with a violent shudder, and suddenly they were there hanging in space above Nexus Prime, the heavily fortified homeworld of the Dominion Empire. The planet gleamed like a dark jewel below them, its surface covered in the geometric patterns of alien cities and orbital platforms. "My God," someone whispered. The Dominion defenses were impressive energy shields surrounding the planet, weapon platforms scattered throughout the system, patrol fleets moving in precise formations. But they were also unprepared. The surprise was complete. "All ships, execute attack pattern Omega," Captain Stone commanded, his voice cutting through the shock on the bridge. "Remember, our target is the central command nexus. Everything else is secondary." The human fleet spread out like a flower blooming in fast motion, each group moving toward pre-assigned targets. Marcus's squadron dove toward the orbital defense platforms, their fighters dancing between energy blasts with deadly grace. "Zara, I need communication links to all strike teams," Nova called out as the first explosions lit up the darkness. Zara's fingers moved automatically over her controls, her training taking over even as part of her mind watched Marcus's fighter. Weave through the defensive fire. He was poetry in motion, dangerous and beautiful and completely in his element. Links established, she reported. All teams report ready. Quantum scramblers active, Nova added. Their coordination is breaking. Down on the main display, Zara watched as the Dominion's orderly defenses began to fragment. Ships that should have been working together started firing in different directions. Command signals became confused and contradictory. It's working, Captain Stone said with grim satisfaction. All wings, press the attack. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Human ships, smaller and more maneuverable than their alien counterparts, struck like a swarm of angry insects. They couldn't match the Dominion's firepower. But they didn't need to, they just needed to cause enough chaos to reach their real target. Strike Team Alpha reporting, came Marcus's voice over the comm. We've cleared a path to the command nexus, beginning our attack run now. Zara held her breath as she watched his squadron dive toward the heavily shielded structure that served as the nerve center of the Dominion war machine. Defensive fire lanced out from every direction, but Marcus led his pilots through it with the kind of flying that would have been impossible for anyone less skilled. Direct hit on the primary shield generator. He reported, shields are down, but barely. We need. The transmission cut off as an explosion lit up the tactical display. Zara's heart stopped as she saw Marcus's fighter spinning out of control, its engine trailing fire and debris. Marcus, she called out, forgetting protocol, forgetting everything except the terror of losing him. I'm okay, his voice came back, strained but alive. Ship's dead, but I'm alive. Going to have to sit the rest of this one out. Relief flooded through her so powerfully she had to grip her console to stay upright. He was alive, hurt, maybe, but alive. Strike Team Beta, you're up, Captain Stone ordered. Finish what Alpha started. The second wave of fighters swept in, and this time their attack found its mark. The command nexus erupted in a ball of fire and energy that sent shock waves throughout the Dominion fleet, secondary explosions cascading through their network. Nova reported with fierce satisfaction. Their entire command structure is collapsing. Across the system, Dominion ships began to flee or surrender as their central coordination failed. The impossible had happened. A ragtag fleet of rebels had struck at the heart of an empire and won. All ships, prepare for withdrawal, Captain Stone commanded. We've got maybe 10 minutes before their reinforcements arrive. As the human fleet regrouped for the journey home, Zara found herself laughing and crying at the same time. They'd done it. They'd actually done it. Think this will end it? Nova asked quietly. Zara looked at the tactical display, at the burning wreckage of the command nexus, at the retreating Dominion forces. No, she said after a moment. But it's a beginning, a chance for something better. As Marcus's damaged fighter was taken aboard a rescue ship, as the fleet prepared to jump to safety, Zara allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, the galaxy might know peace again, and that she and Marcus might have a chance to explore what they'd found together in the quiet spaces between battles. 6 months after the Battle of Nexus Prime, Zara stood in the crystal gardens of the former Dominion capital, watching alien children play among flowers that sparkled like captured starlight. The transformation had been remarkable where once massive war machines had dominated the landscape. Now markets bustled with trade between species that had been enemies just months before. The peace negotiations are going better than expected, said a melodious voice behind her. Zara turned to see Empress Kira Vale approaching, her iridescent robes flowing like liquid mercury. Once the supreme ruler of the Dominion Empire, Kira had shocked the galaxy by ordering her forces to stand down after the destruction of the command nexus. More shocking still was her decision to personally negotiate the peace terms. Your Majesty, Zara said with a respectful nod. Even now, months into the process, she still felt awkward around the former Empress. Please, just Kira, the alien woman said with a smile that was both regal and surprisingly warm. We're practically colleagues now. It was true, in a strange way. As the chief communications coordinator for the peace process, Zara had worked closely with representatives from dozens of species, but none had been as fascinating or as complex as the woman who had once commanded the galaxy's most feared military force. Any word from the medical bay? Kira asked, and Zara heard the carefully controlled concern in her voice. Thomas is recovering well, Zara replied, understanding immediately. The doctors say he'll be back on his feet within the week. Thomas Henley, the human diplomat who'd been leading the peace negotiations, had collapsed from exhaustion 3 days earlier. What should have been a crisis had instead become something unexpected. Kira had personally overseen his care, sitting by his bedside and making medical decisions with the kind of tender attention that had set tongues wagging throughout the diplomatic corps. That's good to hear, Kira said, and the slight blush that colored her pale features was unmistakably that of a woman in love, regardless of species. He's been asking for you, Zara added gently. Has he? The hope in Kira's voice was so human, so vulnerable, that Zara felt her heart tighten with sympathy every hour. According to the nurses, they're getting tired of telling him you're in meetings. Kira's laugh was like silver bells chimming. Then perhaps I should stop avoiding the medical bay and actually visit him. He'd like that. And Kira, Zara touched the former Empress's arm lightly. For what it's worth, I think he feels the same way about you. The conversation was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. Marcus appeared around a corner of the garden path, looking healthier than he had since the battle. The injuries from his crash had healed, but it had taken months for the deeper exhaustion of years of fighting to fade from his eyes. Sorry to interrupt, he said, though his smile suggested he wasn't sorry at all. But they're asking for you. In the communications center, Zara. Something about the Outer Rim territories wanting to join the new alliance. More paperwork. Zara sighed dramatically, though she was secretly pleased. Every new member of the Galactic Peace Alliance was another step toward the kind of future she'd only dared dream about during the darkest days of the war. I'll leave you to your work, Kira said diplomatically. I have a medical consultation to attend to. She glided away with the grace of someone who'd been born to rule. But Zara caught the eager quickening of her step as she headed toward the medical complex. Think they'll figure it out? Marcus asked, slipping his arm around Zara's waist. I think they already have. They're just being diplomatic about it. Zara leaned into his warmth, marveling at how natural this felt after all these months. Can you imagine the headlines? Former Empress falls for human negotiator. Stranger things have happened, Marcus said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. I seem to remember a certain communications specialist falling for a disreputable pilot. Disreputable. Zara turned in his arms, raising an eyebrow. You're a squadron leader now. Practically respectable. Don't let it get around. I have a reputation to maintain. Their banter was comfortable, worn smooth by countless conversations over months of working together to build something new from the ashes of war. But underneath the easy humor, Zara could sense something different in Marcus today, a nervous energy that hadn't been there this morning. The communication center can wait a few minutes, she said, studying his face. What's really going on? Marcus's grin was sheepish. That obvious to me, always. He took her hands in his, suddenly serious. Zara, these past months, working with you, building this alliance, watching you negotiate peace between species that have been fighting for centuries. I've never been prouder to know someone. Marcus, let me finish, he said softly. I know we've talked about the future, about what happens when the galaxy doesn't need warriors anymore. And I know I haven't always been good at the emotional stuff, but there's something I need to ask you. Zara's heart began to race as Marcus dropped to one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket. Around them, the crystal flowers chimed softly in the alien breeze, as if the garden itself was holding its breath. Zara Voss, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. Will you marry me? Will you help me figure out who I am in a galaxy at peace? Will you let me love you for the rest of our lives? The ring inside the box was unlike anything she'd ever seen, a human diamond surrounded by small gems from a dozen different worlds, each one representing a species that had found peace through the alliance they'd helped build. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, of course, yes, as Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger. Zara felt tears streaming down her cheeks, not tears of sadness for everything they'd lost, but tears of joy for everything they'd found. The stones, Marcus explained, as he stood and pulled her into his arms. They're from representatives of every species in the Alliance. Nova helped me collect them, said it was about time I did something romantic. It's perfect, Zara said, admiring the way the different gems caught the light. We're perfect. As they kissed among the crystal flowers, Zara thought about the journey that had brought them here from the burning ruins of New Haven Colony to the gardens of a former enemy's homeworld. She thought about Nova, now commanding her own exploration fleet, mapping the unknown regions beyond former dominion. Space, she thought about Captain Stone, who'd accepted a position training the new Alliance Defense Forces. She thought about Ben Torres, the colony administrator who'd become governor of the rebuilt New Haven, now a symbol of hope throughout human space. Most of all, she thought about the future, not the uncertain, dangerous future they'd fought for, but the bright, peaceful future they'd won. A future where humans and aliens worked together, where love could bloom between former enemies, where the people who'd found each other in the depths of war could build a life together in the light of peace. So, Marcus said when they finally broke apart, ready to go deal with those outer rim territories. In a minute, Zara said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him again. Right now, I'm exactly where I wanted to be. Behind them, the crystal flowers chimed their approval, and somewhere in the distance, the sound of construction echoed through the air as former enemies worked together to build a better galaxy. The war was over, the peace had begun, and for Zara and Marcus, the greatest adventure was just starting. In the medical bay, Kira Vale sat beside Thomas Henley's bed, her pale hand gently holding his human one as he slept. The former empress, who had once commanded fleets, now watched over a single man with the devotion of someone who had discovered that love was the greatest conquest of all. The galaxy was healing, and love, it seemed, was the best medicine for wounds both old and new. As the twin suns of the former Dominion capital set beyond the crystal gardens, painting the sky in shades of hope and possibility, the future stretched out before them, all bright, peaceful, and full of promise. The age of empires was over. The age of love had begun.